My family invited me to their big holiday gathering, only to humiliate me and kick me out in front of everyone. With no explanation, hurt and stunned, I decided to cancel the financial support I'd provided to make the event happen. When my brother found out, he called me selfish. In this story, I want to share how I reclaimed my self-respect, stood my ground, and taught them an important lesson about boundaries. Hi, my name is Rachel, and if you told me a year ago that I'd cut ties with my brother Ethan and his family, I wouldn't have believed you. For years, I was the dependable one, the person everyone could count on, the one who showed up no matter what. But last holiday season was the moment that everything changed. I went into December feeling surprisingly organized and excited. For once, I wasn't scrambling to find last-minute gifts. By the first week of the month, I'd already picked out presents for my parents, Ethan, his wife Monica, and their 2 kids. I even bought a few extra gifts just in case we had unexpected visitors. Something about that year felt promising, like maybe things would finally go smoothly for once. When the big day arrived, I loaded my carefully wrapped gifts into my car and drove to my parents' house. I was genuinely looking forward to celebrating with everyone. But the excitement disappeared the second my dad opened the door. "We're not doing this with you here," he said, his tone awkward but firm. I froze on the porch, holding 2 large bags of gifts in each hand, thinking it had to be a joke. I started to laugh nervously, but then Monica stepped into view, glaring at me with folded arms. "You don't belong here," she said coldly. "Honestly, we're all tired of you." Ethan stood off to the side, pretending to check his phone, avoiding my eyes entirely. My mom hovered in the background, looking uncomfortable but saying nothing. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Anger, confusion, and humiliation bubbled inside me, but I forced myself to stay composed. "All right then," I said quietly. "If that's how you feel." I turned around, walked back to my car, and sat in the driveway gripping the steering wheel. My mind was spinning. What had I done to deserve this? Over the years, I'd gone out of my way to support Ethan and Monica. I paid for their kids' school supplies, covered their rent when they were struggling, and even helped them with groceries during hard times. And now, I wasn't welcome at a family gathering? Something inside me shifted. I couldn't let them treat me like this. Leaving the gifts behind, I walked back to the house and knocked. My dad opened the door again, visibly uncomfortable. "I need to know what's going on," I said firmly. "Why am I being treated this way? What did I do?" Ethan finally spoke, but his voice was sharp and dismissive. "You haven't done enough," he said, stepping closer. "The kids barely got anything from you this year. You've been slacking." I stared at him, stunned. "I spent hundreds on gifts for your kids," I said, my voice trembling. "They have more presents in my car than anyone else here." Monica shrugged. "Last year, you did more. This year, it's like you don't care. And honestly, it's embarrassing." I turned to my parents, hoping they'd step in, but my mom just mumbled, "Well, you did just buy a new phone. If you had money for that, maybe you could have done more for the kids." "The phone was a necessity for work," I replied, keeping my voice calm. "And even if it wasn't, how does that make me responsible for Ethan's family? They're not my responsibility." "You're the one who's financially stable," Monica said, crossing her arms. "Families help each other. You've always done that before." I felt my frustration boiling over. "Let me get this straight," I said, glaring at her. "Because I've been generous in the past, you think I'm obligated to keep doing it forever? And if I don't, I'm the bad guy?" Monica smirked. "If the shoe fits." That was the final straw. "You know what? You're right. I don't belong here," I said, stepping back. "Enjoy your holiday." "Oh, and Ethan?" I turned to face him directly. "Good luck finding someone else to bankroll your life because I'm done." I stormed out, got into my car, and drove home in silence. My hands were shaking on the wheel. Had I made the right decision? Was I being selfish for standing my ground? For years, I'd gone above and beyond to support my family, and now I was being punished for not doing more. When I got home, I sat in the driveway staring at the bags of gifts still in the car. I thought about all the time and effort I'd spent picking out thoughtful presents for everyone. And for what? To be called selfish and cast aside like I didn't matter? That night, I made a decision. I was done being everyone's safety net. No more money, no more bailing them out, and no more being the family doormat. Ethan and Monica could figure it out on their own. Waking up the next morning, I felt a sense of clarity I hadn't experienced in years. Cutting Ethan and Monica off wasn't an easy decision, but it was the right one. I had spent so long trying to be everything for everyone that I'd forgotten how to prioritize myself. Still, a part of me felt heavy, knowing that my decision might cause an even bigger rift in the family. The silence from my family was immediate and deafening. No one called, no one texted, not even my parents. It was like I'd disappeared. For the first time in years, I spent the holidays alone. New Year's Eve came and went without so much as a message from anyone. There was sadness in that, but also relief. For once, I wasn't bending over backward to hold everything together, and I realized maybe that was okay. By mid-January, something unexpected happened. Ethan's wife, Monica, never one to admit fault, sent me a text. Except, it wasn't an apology, it was a rant. I hope you're happy. The kids are devastated. Ethan doesn't know how we're going to make it this month, thanks to you. I stared at the message in disbelief before typing back, your problems are not my responsibility anymore. Good luck. It felt like a small victory. Then, a few days later, Ethan's tone shifted. Out of the blue, he sent me a message. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. The way things went down wasn't right, and I don't agree with how Monica handled it. I thought you should know. I sat with the message for a while, unsure how to feel. Part of me appreciated the sentiment, but another part of me couldn't forget how he had stayed silent while Monica humiliated me. After some thought, I responded. I appreciate you saying that, but it doesn't erase what happened. I need space right now. He didn't push for more, and honestly, I was fine with that. But then, in early February, Monica showed up at my apartment unannounced. I was in the middle of making dinner when I heard the knock. At first, I ignored it, thinking it was a delivery. But the knocking became louder and more insistent. When I opened the door, there she was, looking frazzled and angrier than ever. We need to talk, she said, brushing past me into my living room. I folded my arms and leaned against the wall. What is it now, Monica? You need to stop this ridiculous attitude and start helping us again, she snapped, pacing back and forth. I laughed dryly. Helping you? You mean bailing you out again? I told you, I'm done with that. Her face twisted in frustration. You're the one with the money, Rachel. Do you know how hard it's been for us since you decided to abandon your family? What I hear, I said, my voice calm but sharp, is that you're a grown woman with a husband and kids, but instead of figuring out how to handle your responsibilities, you're here trying to guilt me into fixing your life. You've always helped before, she countered. Why stop now? Why are you being so selfish? Selfish? I repeated, anger rising in my chest. Let's talk about selfish, Monica. Let's talk about how you and Ethan lied to Mom and Dad, turned them against me, and humiliated me in front of everyone because I didn't give you enough gifts. And now you're standing here asking for more? You've got some nerve. Monica opened her mouth to argue, but I raised a hand to stop her. We're done here. I'm not giving you another cent, and I don't want to hear from you again until you figure out how to take care of your own family. She glared at me, her face a mixture of anger and disbelief, before storming out. I assumed that was the end of it. She might complain to my parents, but surely even she would realize I wasn't budging. I was wrong. 2 days later, I got a phone call from an unfamiliar number. Normally, I wouldn't answer, but something told me to pick up. Hello? Hi, is this Rachel? A man's voice asked. Yes. Who's this? This is Daniel Hughes. I'm an attorney, and I represent a client who recently raised concerns about financial matters involving your family. Do you have a moment to discuss this? My stomach sank. A lawyer? Financial concerns? None of this sounded good. What financial matters? I asked cautiously. I can't go into too much detail over the phone, Daniel said politely, but it involves how financial contributions you've made to your brother and his wife may have been used. Would you be willing to meet in person to discuss the situation? I hesitated, my mind racing. Had Monica done something shady with the money I'd given them? Or was this just another manipulation tactic to scare me into giving them more? Who's your client? I asked. There was a pause before he answered. "It's Ethan," he said. I blinked in shock. "Ethan?" Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet with him. Something told me this was bigger than I realized. The next day, I sat across from Daniel in his office. He slid a folder across the desk toward me. "Ethan came to me because he's discovered some concerning things about how Monica has been handling the money you've given them," Daniel explained. I hesitated before opening the folder. Inside were copies of bank statements, transactions, and even receipts. "Monica has been funneling money into a separate account," Daniel said. "Based on what Ethan has found, it appears she's been using your contributions for gambling and personal expenses rather than for the family's needs." I stared at the documents in disbelief. "You're telling me that the rent payments, school supplies, and everything else I helped with, none of it went to their family?" Daniel nodded grimly. "It appears so. Ethan only recently discovered this and came to me because he wasn't sure how to handle it. He thought you deserved to know." My hands trembled as I flipped through the pages. The evidence was overwhelming: transfers from my account to Monica's matched with withdrawals to her personal account, transactions for gambling websites, expensive dinners, and even a weekend stay at a luxury hotel. I felt sick to my stomach. "I can't believe this," I muttered, closing the folder. Daniel gave me a sympathetic look. "Ethan is still processing it himself. He wanted to bring this to your attention because he's trying to protect his kids and make sure Monica can't manipulate you any further." "What does Ethan want me to do?" I asked cautiously. "Is he planning to press charges?" "Not at this stage," Daniel said. "He's focused on separating himself and his children from Monica's financial behavior. But he felt it was important for you to have the full picture in case Monica tries to guilt you into helping her again." I nodded slowly, my mind racing. All these years, I'd broken my back to help them, only to discover that Monica had been lying to all of us. I wasn't sure whether to feel angry, betrayed, or just foolish for not realizing it sooner. "Thank you for letting me know," I said quietly, standing to leave. "If you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out," Daniel said. As I walked out of his office, I felt a strange mix of emotions: anger, sadness, and, oddly enough, relief. For the first time, I wasn't in the dark anymore. I wasn't carrying Monica's burden, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate me ever again. The next few days were a blur. I kept replaying everything Daniel had told me, all the evidence I'd seen. I couldn't believe I'd spent so many years helping someone who had only taken advantage of my kindness. I stayed quiet, though. I didn't reach out to Ethan, Monica, or my parents. I figured they'd make the next move. Sure enough, Monica called me a few days later. Her voice was frantic. "Rachel, what the hell did you say to Ethan?" she demanded. "He's been acting weird, and now he's bringing up lawyers and threatening to leave me. I know you've been filling his head with lies." I couldn't help but laugh. The sheer audacity of her was unbelievable. "You think I'm the problem?" I said, my voice cold. "You lied to him. You hid money. You gambled away the help I gave you. If Ethan's finally waking up to the truth, that's on you, Monica. Not me." "You don't know what you're talking about," she snapped, but I could hear the panic in her voice. "Oh, I think I do," I said sharply. "Ethan showed me everything, the secret account, the gambling, the wasted money. And let me tell you something, I'm done. You've used me for the last time. Don't ever call me again." Before she could respond, I hung up. My hands were shaking, but it felt good to finally stand my ground. For years, I'd let Monica and Ethan take advantage of me, always brushing off their behavior as desperation or bad luck. But now, I saw it for what it was: selfishness and entitlement. The fallout came fast. Ethan called me the next day. His voice was cautious but firm. "Did Monica call you?" he asked. "Yeah," I replied. "She wasn't happy." He sighed heavily. "I figured. She's trying to spin this as some kind of misunderstanding, but I'm done believing her excuses. The kids deserve better." Hearing him say that felt heavier than I expected. I knew things were bad between them, but for Ethan to admit it outright felt like a turning point. "Whatever you decide to do, I'm here for you," I told him. "Thanks," he said softly. "And Rachel, I'm sorry. For everything. The way we treated you at Christmas was wrong, and I should have stood up for you." His apology felt genuine, and I appreciated it more than I could say. We talked for a while, and by the time we hung up, I felt a strange sense of closure. Monica had ruined my relationship with Ethan for years, but now I realized Ethan wasn't my enemy. If anything, he and his kids had been victims of her manipulation, just like I had. Still, I knew Monica wasn't going to give up that easily. A few weeks later, Ethan sent me a text that made my heart race. "We're leaving today." He explained that he and the kids were moving out while Monica was away. He'd rented a moving truck and found a new place in another state where they could start fresh. I called him immediately. "Are you okay?" I asked. "I'm fine," he said, his voice steady but tired. "I just can't keep living like this. The kids deserve a better environment, and I'm not going to wait around for things to change." "What about the rent? Are you going to be okay financially?" There was a pause before he admitted, "I was hoping you could help me, just this once. I wouldn't ask if I didn't have to." I hesitated. For years, I'd been their financial crutch, and the idea of stepping into that role again made me nervous. But this time, it felt different. Ethan wasn't manipulating me or guilt-tripping me, he was genuinely asking for help to rebuild his life. "Say no more," I said. "I'll cover it." For the first time, I felt like I was helping for the right reasons, not out of obligation, but because I wanted to. Ethan and his kids didn't deserve to suffer for Monica's mistakes. When Monica came home to find the house empty, she completely lost it. She called me, screaming about how I'd ruined her life. I let her vent, then said, "Maybe this wouldn't have happened if you spent more time being a parent and less time gambling." Before she could respond, I added, "Good luck," and hung up. Ethan kept me updated in the weeks that followed. The kids were settling into their new school, and he'd found a stable job. For the first time in years, he felt like he had control over his life. Knowing that they were safe and starting fresh gave me a peace I hadn't felt in a long time. As for Monica, she was still stirring up drama. Through the family grapevine, I learned that she was trying to paint herself as the victim. She told everyone that Ethan had abandoned her and accused me of orchestrating it all. At first, some relatives seemed to believe her, but as more of the truth came out, her lies started to unravel. My parents, however, remained firmly on her side. My mom called me one afternoon, her tone sharp from the start. "Rachel, what on earth have you done?" she demanded. "Monica is struggling, and you've completely abandoned her and the kids." I sighed, gripping the phone tightly. "Mom, this isn't my fault. Monica lied to all of us. She's been gambling away the money I gave to help her kids, and Ethan finally had enough. He left because of her actions, not mine." "She said you turned Ethan against her," my mom shot back. "And now the kids are suffering because of you." I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "If you believe that, go ahead," I said. "But maybe you should ask Ethan why he left. Ask him about the gambling. Ask him about the secret account. Then tell me if I'm really the one to blame." There was a long silence before my dad came on the line, his tone quieter but just as accusatory. "Rachel, family is supposed to stick together. You've always been the responsible one. Couldn't you have just helped her a little longer?" "Dad," I said, my patience wearing thin, "how is it my job to fix Monica's life? She's a grown woman. If she can't take care of her family, that's on her, not me. I've done enough." The call ended shortly after that, with my parents clearly siding with Monica. I wasn't surprised, but it still hurt. For years, I'd been the one holding everything together, and now I was being cast as the villain. But this time, I didn't let their guilt-tripping get to me. I knew I'd done the right thing, and that was enough. A few weeks later, Ethan called me to let me know he'd filed for divorce. "It's official," he said, his voice calm but steady. "I'm done." "How are the kids handling it?" I asked. "They're adjusting," he said. "It's been tough, but they're doing okay. We're all doing okay." I could hear the relief in his voice, and it was clear he'd made the right decision. Ethan also told me he was taking legal steps to protect himself and the kids financially. He wanted to ensure Monica couldn't come after them for anything and that she couldn't jeopardize their stability. As for Monica, I learned through extended family that her reputation was in free fall. Once relatives started piecing together the truth, either from Ethan or me, they stopped buying her sob story. One cousin even called me to apologize. "I'm so sorry, Rachel," she said. "I believed Monica at first, but now everything makes sense. She's been playing everyone for years." Hearing that gave me a strange sense of closure. For so long, I'd carried the weight of Monica's choices, feeling like it was my responsibility to fix everything. But now, the truth was out, and I wasn't alone in seeing her for who she really was. Ethan and I stayed in touch, and it felt good to rebuild that relationship. He updated me often about the kids, who were thriving in their new school. He was settling into his new job and finally felt like he had a future to look forward to. Every time we spoke, I felt proud, not of myself, but of him. He'd taken the hardest step, and he was making it work. As for me, I finally started focusing on myself. Without Monica's endless crises, I had the space to think about what I wanted for my life. I spent more time with friends, picked up hobbies I'd neglected, and even started traveling a bit. Life felt lighter, freer. But most importantly, I learned a lesson I should have learned years ago: boundaries are essential. For years, I let guilt and obligation dictate my choices, putting Monica's needs above my own. I thought that was what family was supposed to do. But now, I see things differently. Family isn't about who you're related to, it's about who shows up for you, who respects you, and who values you. I may not have my parents or Monica in my corner anymore, but I have my peace. And honestly, that's more than enough. Thank you for watching the video. Subscribe and turn on notifications to be the first to have radish and real stories with you. Have a great day.